Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, our coronavirus coverage continues. Thousands of Americans trapped abroad due to COVID-19 and the fear of being blamed for spreading the disease.
I've been getting messages saying, leave the country, you're a stupid American.
A mother and daughter who claim they're being kept prisoner in India.
You say the hostel has padlocked their front gates.
I left one time within the 20 days that we've been locked here.
And the public humiliation of non-compliant people.
Today, I'm continuing our series of shows focusing on the challenges and struggles surrounding COVID-19. Not only are nearly 300 million Americans stuck at home dealing with the anxiety and pressure of isolation, but unbelievably, thousands of Americans are still trapped in foreign countries after airlines all over the world have canceled flights. Many are left isolated due to strict government mandates in the country they find themselves in and are desperate to return home. Now, Catherine and her daughter Lila met up in India right before the Prime Minister gave 4 hours notice, ordering 1.3 billion people to stay inside their homes.
The coronavirus pandemic has become a major roadblock for many Americans outside of the country.
Canceled flights, sudden travel restrictions, and strict quarantines have all blocked many people from getting back. And this week, the State Department warned that time may be running out.
Jessa and Mallory are trying to get home from Honduras.
I think we're just concerned about what the future could hold for us.
Pretty much every major city in the world has American tourists trying to figure out how to get home. And what they seem to be getting from the U.S. State Department is either very little information or very expensive flight options.
Joy McBreen and Ella Pontier are stuck in remote parts of Peru. They couldn't get out before the country closed its borders.
You really have no idea how long you'll be there.
Right. I have no idea how long I could be here for.
Can you promise every American who is overseas that wants to come back that they will have the ability to get back?
I will promise every American who's overseas who comes forward in a timely fashion while we are still running these operations that we will do everything we can to get them on one of these planes.
I'm relying on my government, relying on the Peruvian government for them to cooperate, and I have zero say in what's to happen. It's very frustrating and scary.
Now, what's more troubling is that videos and reports have emerged of people in India being brutally beaten with sticks and publicly humiliated, being forced to do push-ups and squats in the streets for violating the order. Now, Catherine claims the hostel she and her daughter are confined to has padlocked their front gates, keeping them locked inside. You heard me right, American citizens locked inside. They are joining me now from India via their iPhone. Lila, Catherine, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Hi, Dr. Phil.
Well, it's so good to talk to you, and I'm so sorry for the circumstance that you're in. Now, you guys are in a hostel over there, and you've been behind a padlock gate for how long?
20 days.
20 days. And when you say you're behind a padlocked gate, exactly what does that mean? There's a property there. You can't go out of the gate, go out on the street, go to the store. You can't go pick up essentials.
No. And actually, Dr. Phil, yesterday I did gain access out of the gate. I did so by pure, tough, country girl ingenuity. And I let it be known that I was aware of the laws in the country and also the local laws and the local protocols. And I had a friend call from Mumbai city up to Delhi. He had directed me to ask that they call the police department on my behalf. I have an American phone. I don't have a local phone. I cannot dial 100 and get the police department like you can on a local phone. So I demanded that this happen because I wanted the police to escort me to the store so that I could pick up my essential needs of food items and medicine. And finally, with this threat, they did let me out and they sent me with an escort. And what I found was that there were a lot of people out. And a lot of those people, too, were Western tourists. And I asked the shopkeepers and many others, and they said, no, madam, you are permitted out from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. to collect your needs. Not to be loitering or something like that, but just to collect those essentials. I had one of these masks on. And
okay, so what you're saying is that the hostel had put in their own rules that the actual law was that you could be out from 7 to 1, but the hostel had imposed more rigid rules than were actually required.
That is correct.
Well, the owner of the hostel is just trying to like protect us and protect his name, and because we are his liability if something were to happen to us outside of the hostel during the curfew hours.
This is the excuse that he's presenting.
And Lila, you were allowed to leave the hostel with an escort for 20 minutes as well, correct?
Yes. Well, I left one time within the 20 days that we've been locked here.
And it was a compromise. It was a compromise that took meeting with every member of the hostel.
I had to fake cry to the doctors, telling them, you know, please just tell the staff to let me out. Please, I need to get some B12 vitamins and some protein bars, you know.
Okay, and of course, listen, I want to be very clear. I mean, you guys are not wanting to, go out and violate the stay-at-home order. You're not wanting to just go out and wander around the city. You're just saying, first, you want to go home, but you're just saying you want to be able to go to the store to pick up essential items for your health and well-being. That's what you're asking to do, correct?
Right.
Fresh fruit, toothpaste, another bar of soap. We were expected to be home by now. So these essentials that we've carried with us have expired.
And what is the stick action, Catherine, that the police are using?
We've seen this online on many social media posts. I haven't seen it in person. Here at the hostel, we did have a gathering in the car park one night where we all came together. They pulled some little burners outside so anybody who wanted to could kind of cook a dish from wherever they came from, and we're coming together as a group dinner. The police came and busted our party for doing this. And when they did, they also explained to us that we were permitted to go outside of the gate from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., but to keep our distance. And they didn't have a problem with our dinner party. What they had a problem with was how close we were standing together, even though we are locked together in one hostel.
Okay, in the hostel, are you guys kind of jammed together?
We're in a private room. So,
she and I are in a private room.
Bed. We're sitting on my bed, and it's pretty small.
Okay, good. But at least you have a private room.
Yeah, it is a backpackers hostel. So there are other guests here that are in dormitory rooms that have bunk beds of maybe like 4 or 6 guests in a room.
Okay.
So
we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk to you about what's been happening on getting you home, because canceled flights, safety issues, fears of catching the virus itself. Catherine and Lila say getting home may not be easy at all. We're going to talk about what those challenges are after the break. Tomorrow, the stigma of testing positive. You'll meet a New Yorker who found out she had COVID-19 on her 21st birthday. She shares her story and discusses the shocking reaction she got from many of her friends, plus hate crimes connected with the coronavirus. I'll be talking with an Asian American woman from Los Angeles who claims she was targeted and attacked while walking her dog. That's tomorrow. But today, we're turning our focus to the thousands trapped in foreign countries all over the globe after COVID-19 forced the cancellation of flights. Now, Catherine and her daughter Lila are currently stranded in India and say even if they can get on a plane home, they fear catching the virus while traveling. Now, think about this. You're halfway around the world, you're in a foreign country, they've locked it down, so you got a shelter at home order there, and all the flights that you would normally rely on have been canceled, but you want to get home. Now, Catherine, you had a return flight, or you have a return flight, but that airline has shut down and the connecting airport in Dubai is closed, correct?
That is correct. And I spoke to my airline today in Dubai, and the customer service representative that I spoke to couldn't have been nicer. But she explained to me, first of all, India is locked down. So although the airline company is doing limited flights to London, Brussels, Paris, and Frankfurt, they cannot land in India to pick us up. Even if they could, because Dubai is completely closed per the UAE government, there's no coming in. So these flights that are leaving Dubai are only to take people out and away. Even UAE citizens cannot come back to UAE, and there's absolutely no estimation and no announcement from the UAE as to when and if they will lift that.
What I'm curious about is, are the two of you committed to traveling together? When you do leave India, Lila, are you and your mother going to travel together?
No.
Not necessarily.
No, she has to go to Mumbai to pick up baggage, and I am not going back there. We weren't even supposed to be traveling together this long, and kind of getting sick of her. Being stuck in a room. I mean, I haven't lived with my mom for over 10 years, and being stuck in a small room with both beds next to each other is kind of, I mean, I love her, she's my mom, and I'd rather be stuck with nobody else, but it's hard, you know?
Well, I understand. I understand that can be difficult. But Catherine, you're reading stories of others where taxi drivers refuse to drive Americans to the airport to just get to flights. Are they looking at Americans differently now that this virus has really come into the spotlight?
So 2 weeks ago, we went to a Holy Festival, which is like a festival every year that's celebrated. It's a huge festival
where they
here
throw
in
the
India,
colors,
where they throw paint and colors and water. And I had a line of people, like Indian people, wanting to take selfies with me, and they were just so thrilled to see tourists and so happy we were here and so quick to offer any help. And now I feel like the vibe has totally changed, and they're not as happy to see us here. And I've been getting like nasty direct messages on Instagram from people from India, like saying, leave the country, you know, you're a stupid American. And
am I to understand that the American government has offered a flight, but you have to sign a promissory note to pay the ticket in full, and the amount's not given until you land?
Yes.
That's correct. And it's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So there's young people here that are just going to ride it out because they can't afford it.
I'm young people.
I don't know what to do because I can't afford it. And we have another American lady here from San Diego whose family worked out to get her a flight, which today was canceled today by United Airlines. And United is saying, we're sorry, contact your embassy. And although we don't necessarily have to travel together, we're all the way up in the Himalayas. This is not my first time to India. She's not riding a sleeper bus or going on a train or any of those things looking like this all by herself. That's not happening.
Well, this is just outrageous. I mean, the American government is saying you have to sign a blank promissory note for a ticket to get home. What does it usually cost to fly from India to the United States?
$400. But
4 to 6.
The government can't afford to go pick up some citizens.
And we have a lady that got home, and when she got home, The government gave her the bill and it was $3,000, and they're going to keep her passport if she doesn't ante up. And they charged her 10 times the amount for ground travel to get to the airport.
And it doesn't even drop you off to your where you need to go. Like, it will drop you off somewhere in the U.S. and it's on you to find your way home from there.
Okay, we're out of time.
I'm sorry.
We're out of time because we're running along here. But you guys have brought a bright spotlight onto a very important issue here. And I'm going to follow up on this and find out what the hell's going on. This should not be the case. So, Catherine, Lila, I suspect we're going to talk again.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
Come get us, Dr. Phil.
All right. Next, he and his wife were confined for 13 days inside their small cabin aboard a cruise ship hit with cases of COVID-19. Some of those days without cold water or even a working toilet until they were finally allowed to dock. And later, the State Department and a travel industry expert explained what Americans stranded abroad need to do. All of that coming up. Traveling and vacationing in some of the world's most idyllic destinations has left thousands stranded in the wake of COVID-19. My next guest, Ashok, and his wife, Danu, thought they were taking a cruise of a lifetime sailing the coast of South America. What they ended up with, though, was a voyage from hell. Trapped on a ship with confirmed cases of COVID-19, 4 dead and 200 having flu-like symptoms. They say they were enjoying their trip when their captain made an announcement ordering all passengers to their rooms. So for the next 13 days, this retired couple says they went to sleep every night fearing they may not wake up the next day. Ashok and Danu are joining me during a mandatory 14-day quarantine from their home in Toronto, Canada. Ashok and Danu, thank you so much for joining us. And tell me, this time that you were locked in your room for 13 days, describe what that was like, Ashok.
Okay, to start with, we had a problem in the Zandam ship, and as a forecast and 37 crew members sick, we were solidly locked in, not allowed to go out. The food, everything was brought up to the room. And then we got transferred to Rotterdam ship on 26th of March. And our nightmare started in that ship.
Okay, was it worse after you transferred or before? Which was the toughest part of your...
After it got worse. Because in the new ship, we were totally locked down. And with our luck, the air conditioning failed. The toilet would not flush. The shower water between the hot and cold was extremely hot. So our experience, in order to take a shower, we used to fill the bucket of ice from the washing sink basin, bring it to the bathroom, to the tub, and try and wash up that way.
Okay, I understand. Danu, did you feel like your life was in danger?
Every day it was worse and worse, and with the heat in the room, we could hardly breathe some days. And every day when we woke up, we thank God that we are still here.
Ashok, what did you think when you heard that 4 people had died on the ship?
At that part, it was very, very scary. I was praying, God, I hope not all the passengers get sick, because my last thinking, this is my thinking, if the whole ship was sick, they could have blown the ship into the ocean. So I was counting my days from that on.
So you actually thought if this became a ship of death, that they may not ever let it come back to shore?
Correct. Because being sick people on the ship, they don't want the other people get infected. So sometimes better to let the sick people die and save the good ones.
Right.
And it wasn't the fear of the sheep or anything, but all the states not letting us dock, which made it worse day by day because you just don't know the unknown.
Right. And you stayed in this room for 13 days and they would knock on your door and just leave food on the floor?
Yes, they would leave the tray by the outside on the door, and you bring the food in. As far as sheep concerned, their treatment was very, very good. I cannot ask for any better service than what they have provided. But it's just the circumstances that everybody was fearing because of the COVID.
Right. Well, Ashok admits that while locked in his cabin, there came a time where he thought about taking his own life and he had a plan to do it. What stopped him? We'll talk about that after the break. Tomorrow, hate crimes connected with the coronavirus. I'll be talking with an Asian American woman from Los Angeles who claims she was targeted and attacked while walking her dog. Plus, the stigma of testing positive. You'll meet a New Yorker who found out she had COVID-19 on her 21st birthday. She shares her story and discusses the shocking reaction she got from many of her friends. That's tomorrow. Today, we're talking about how, in an attempt to flatten the curve on COVID-19, some Americans are being forced to self-isolate on foreign soils, stuck abroad, and desperate to get home. My current guest, Ashok, and his wife, Danu, were mandated to a smaller interior cruise ship cabin with no open window and at times a broken toilet, no air conditioning, for 13 days because of COVID-19 cases and deaths on board. Things were so bad that at one point, Ashok says he thought about taking his own life. Now, Ashok, people sometimes would have a hard time understanding this, but when one day turns into two and two turns into 7 or 8, and you don't know where the end is going to be, you were really afraid what would happen if you got this disease and started deteriorating. That was your concern, correct?
Yes, Dr. Phil. It was like we were disconnected from the outside world, could not see any people or anybody. And because of the lotion that we are putting on our hand to protect from COVID, that gave us some funny taste in the mouth. We lost the sense of smell, we lost the taste of food, the water did not taste good, and my wife had a slight cough, so she was going down little. So good job that the doctor came and gave her some medicine, which recovered. But between us, it was a pact. If I don't make it tomorrow, if one of us don't make it tomorrow, I have this tie, just put it on, pray God, and let it go.
So your idea was to essentially hang or choke yourself to death?
At that point, we had no choice.
Right.
If we lose one of us, then the life don't mean anything to go forward with. Either we end it both at the same time, or pray God that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, Ashok, I'm so very sorry that you went through this. I can't imagine that you go on a trip that you think is going to be just wonderful, and it turns into you contemplating killing yourself because it's the best option available to you. That's just horrible. Now, let me ask you, was the captain keeping everyone abreast when you were turned down from docking as you passed each port? Would he come on and say they won't let us in? Were they telling you this each time?
The main support to us was the captain. He will come with a good speech every day to give us courage to look forward. And wherever the destination, they all refused. Even getting into Panama, we were refused. And we were praying, God, hope we make it to Panama, and past Panama, we'll see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Would the captain come on and tell you that they had tried to dock somewhere and been denied?
Yes, every day he kept us informed. And every day he would give us a little lecture, which gave us lots of hope, and we knew that he's there for us all the time.
That's great.
Sorry, and the captain kept saying he would rather lose his life, but he doesn't want any passenger to be lost. He wants all the passengers safely go home.
Well, Ashok, I have a final question for you. What was it like when you finally stepped off that ship, stepped onto land, and were able to breathe fresh air?
After 27 days, when they allowed us to step out of the ship into the building for health check, I prayed God and I said, thank you so much. I thank President Donald Trump and all the governors of Florida who let us move forward.
It was the biggest joy and a second life for both of us.
Well, God bless you both, and thank you for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too.
Thank you for having us, Dr. Phil. And on 3rd, it was my birthday, so I got my birthday wish through. I turned 71 on 3rd of April. That's the day American people send me with pride, and I'm very, very thankful. It's something they are in my prayers every day.
And when we reached home, the kids made it so much nicer for us that we really thought, this is it, this is family.
Well, that's just great, and happy birthday to you. Ashok, thank you both.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next, if you are an American who is currently trapped abroad, there are steps you need to be taking right now to return home safely. You need to watch what we're getting ready to talk about after the break. Thousands of Americans are stranded abroad due to COVID-19's effect on airlines and travel. On April 1st, the State Department's Repatriation Task Force signaled for the first time that the clock is ticking for U.S. citizens to be able to seek help from the government to return home after countries implemented travel restrictions or border closures with very little notice. Now, Sandra McLemore is a travel industry expert and the host of Travel Market Report's digital channel, which is the travel industry's leading trade publisher. Now, Sandra can be seen not only dispensing practical advice to travelers on in-flight TV and cruise line channels, but is also a sought-out travel expert contributor for news magazines and channels throughout the world due to her speaking 7 languages. Please welcome Sandra McLemore. So, Sandra, thank you for being here today. Some people are really caught in tough spots, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dr. Phil. It is a super stressful situation. Your guests earlier, I can't imagine how stressed they would be right now.
I can't either, but some of this is just the perfect storm of bad circumstances. It's not any one person failing a standard of care. It's like it's not the cruise line doing something wrong. It's not a particular country or government. It's just a lot of things happening at one time, right? The countries are closing their borders. Airlines are canceling flights.
This is a very multifaceted war, Dr. Phil, because people are fighting this on the front lines domestically and internationally. And all of these things that you're talking about, the airlines closing, countries closing their borders, they're all happening simultaneously and with very, very little notice.
Well, answer this for me, because I understand in talking to the 2 very nice ladies in India, for my 2 cents worth, I would take whatever route I had to take to get the hell out of there and get back on U.S. soil. Why would you wait? It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So here's the thing. If you're given an opportunity to leave and you're abroad right now, you should take that opportunity, whether it's by commercial aircraft or it's a charter aircraft organized by your government. There's absolutely no reason to stay. The only people that should be staying are people that don't have an option to leave, but everybody else absolutely should be leaving right away.
Well, they're saying we don't know how much it's going to cost. What the hell difference does it make? I mean, you get home, their penalty is they take your passport. Frankly, they could have my passport. I'm not sure that this is enforceable anyway.
No, absolutely not. And here's the thing. So the State Department have a system in place for when this happens. And I think it's important for us to understand that at any given time, Dr. Phil, there's over 90 million Americans traveling somewhere around the world every single year. So when COVID-19 hit and it became an issue, especially for Americans traveling, there could have been millions of Americans all over the world. So in this case, what happens is that they are required to get out as quickly as possible, preferably on a commercial carrier. But if push comes to shove and that's not an option available for them, the government can charter private aircraft, commercial aircraft, or military aircraft only if that's possible. So that means only if they can land, only if the arriving government will allow it. And then in the case that travelers don't have the money to be able to get home, because I think that's a really important point to make, that it's not the government's financial responsibility to bring travelers home. When you set off on a vacation, whether or not you're heading to Banff or to Bali, it is your responsibility to make your way home. Now, if you don't have the money, of course, the embassies will help you. They have financial programs in place. And if you don't have ability to be able to borrow money, then yes, you'll be asked to sign a promissory note so that when you get home, you can make arrangements to pay that back. But I agree with you, Dr. Phil. I would be heading home at any cost whatsoever.
Of course. Well, Sandra says even with a booked flight, there are things you need to prepare for before you head to the airport. Plus, if you have travel booked for the future, should you cancel your reservations? And there is a checklist that she says that we need to know about concerning the State Department. We're going to talk about all of that right after the break. From canceled flights stranding thousands across the globe to cruise ships quarantining travelers at sea, COVID-19 has brought many new challenges to families vacationing abroad. Now, joining me is Sandra McLemore, a travel industry expert who says once you've secured the flight to return to the United States, there are still things you need to do before you go to the airport. We're going to talk about that. And there is a checklist that the State Department recommends to Americans abroad. And Sandra, let's talk about that. First, travelers are urged to enroll in a certain program called STEP. What is that about?
That's correct, Dr. Phil. So travelers, whenever you head abroad, whether it be at this time of year or any other time, you're strongly recommended to enroll in STEP. Now that stands for the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. Basically, that's the government's way of being able to contact you and provide notifications in the case of an emergency. It's something you can do for free online before you leave, and you'll let the government know where you're going to be traveling and approximately your dates.
Okay, and so this includes something if political winds shift, anything that might happen. There can be a tsunami, there can be things happening that affect your travel plans. The government will let you know. And you need to have a travel plan that does not rely on the U.S. government for assistance, because you're responsible, as you said earlier, to get yourself home, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think that that's quite a misconception. That I don't know if we watch too many blockbuster dramas of evacuations and extractions in the middle of the night, but it just doesn't happen in real life. You need to be prepared to be able to get yourself home, or at least take the advice that the government gives you if something was to happen while you're traveling.
Okay, but if you get into extraordinary circumstances where the world shuts down in a pandemic, like this, where flights are canceled, et cetera, I do expect the American government to step up and provide advice, information, help to get its citizens home in an unusual circumstance. And I don't think that's unreasonable expectation.
No, absolutely not. And I 100% agree with you. And there are measures in place for you to be able to get that help. So my advice to anybody who is stuck abroad right now, the first thing you need to do after you've registered on STEP, even if you didn't do that before you leave, is to get in contact with your local embassy or consulate where you are traveling. So seek shelter in place, stay safe, follow the local laws and regulations. The last thing that you want is to find yourself on the wrong side of the virus and on the wrong side of the law. But reach out to the embassy, because the embassy are your connection to the American government. They'll be able to update you on evacuation plans and the options that are available to you.
Also, check with your airline, cruise line, travel operators regarding any updates, because that's changing constantly as well, right?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. So I think that we've learned this here in the United States, that everything changes every day. It's a very fluid situation. And the same thing with your travel suppliers. My hat goes off to the cruise lines and the airlines and the hotel industry for consistently every day updating their websites. And it's really important that if you're stuck outside the country right now, that you are checking your airline website, that you are checking your cruise line website, your hotel chain website, and just keeping up to date there. I also want to point out that you should also be keeping up to date with the CDC website, even if you're outside of the country. Now, we know that the CDC is an American authority. However, there are some great tips there to help you, just in case you're not getting that information where you are, to be able to live healthily and stay safer and prevent COVID-19 as well. That's really important.
Well, listen, that is such great information. Thank you. I am going to put your number in my contacts list. So if I go somewhere, I'm going to check with you, find out what the deal is before I go. Thank you very much for your information.
You're so welcome.
All right, next, a question from a travel lover. When the travel restrictions are lifted, should we still be afraid to leave the country? We're going to talk about that next. And Sandra, why don't you stick around? You might need to weigh in on this. We'll be right back. COVID-19 is changing life as we know it, but we are all in this together. Now, today I've been focused on travel nightmares so many Americans have faced due to the disease. I'm talking thousands, lots and lots of Americans. Now, Sandra McLemore, a travel industry expert, is still with me. And before we go, I want to answer a question that was on Facebook during a Facebook Live that I've been doing every day at 11 o'clock. I've been on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, just kind of going live and talking to you guys about what's happening. Now, Kimberly Ann posted, I really love traveling, especially out of the country, but now I fear I'll be stranded if another outbreak happens, even 5 years from now. Should I just never leave the States again? Yeah, people are going to really be reluctant to do this. Sandra, what do you say to people about leaving when this has happened? And we know that oftentimes with this type of infection, this type of virus, there is a second wave. What would you say about the next year or two?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question that Kimberly Ann put out there. And I cannot imagine, Dr. Phil, a life without travel. I can't imagine not being able to explore the beautiful pockets of the world that are still out there, because this has happened before, and it might not be something that you remember in your lifetime. I know you're not old enough, Dr. Phil, but the Spanish flu did the same thing. After the World Wars, people were afraid to travel. After the Gulf War, after 9/11, after certain natural disasters. So I really think that we have to remember one thing: travel is not dangerous in itself. What we need to remember is the reason that we're not traveling is because of social distancing, because travel by its very nature requires us to line up, congregate in small spaces, a lot of people, fly together, cruise together, and hang out together. So what we're really waiting for is a time where it's going to be okay for us to relax those social distancing measures that are put in place. But I can't wait for the world to travel again, because like I said, there's still a lot of the world to see out there. I do think the travel industry is going to change a lot in a good way, and I think that we'll travel differently in the future as well.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds. And when finally all of this lifts, I'm going to be interested to see if people race back into their lives or if they kind of tiptoe back in and ease into their lives to stay safe. We'll see. I want to thank all of my guests today, and a special thanks to Sandra. Sandra McLemore, thank you so much. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. Don't forget to check me out on any one of my social media outlets, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also, each day of the week at 11 Pacific time, I've been going live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, just to kind of talk to you about what's happened during the night, any new developments that I've heard from the experts that I'm in touch with, any inside information I might have. So join me at 11 Pacific time to talk about what's going on since I talked to you last. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.